We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. There's a peculiar experiment that changed everything we thought we knew about observation. In 1927, a group of physicists gathered in Copenhagen to discuss something that should have been impossible. They had discovered that the mere act of looking at something changed what it was, not metaphorically, not philosophically, literally. The electron, when observed, behaved differently than when it wasn't being watched. It was as if reality itself was responsive to attention. But this isn't a story about quantum mechanics. This is a story about you, about the architecture of your attention, about how the most mundane choice you make every single day, the choice of where to place your focus, is quietly constructing the entire landscape of your existence. And most people don't even realize they're doing it. We live under a dangerous illusion. We believe that focus is simply a spotlight we shine on what already exists. We think attention is passive, neutral, and a mere tool for observation. But what if I told you that your attention isn't a flashlight illuminating a pre-existing reality? What if your attention is more like a gardener's hand, determining which seeds grow and which wither? What if what you focus on doesn't just seem to expand, but actually, measurably, neurologically, and psychologically expands in your lived experience? This is the truth that modern neuroscience, ancient wisdom, and your own daily experience are screaming at you. If only you knew how to listen. What you focus on expands. And that's not a metaphor. That's not inspiration poster nonsense. That's the operating system of your mind. Let me show you how deep this goes. And please subscribe if you find us worthy. Your brain is not a camera. It's not passively recording reality like some biological CCTV system. Your brain is a prediction machine, constantly constructing your reality based on what it expects to find. And what does it expect to find? Whatever you've been focusing on. There's a structure in your brain called the Reticular Activating System, or RAS. Think of it as the bouncer at the nightclub of your consciousness. Every single second, your senses are bombarded with roughly 11 million bits of information. 11 million. The texture of your clothes against your skin, the hum of electricity in the walls, the pressure of gravity on your body, the infinite variations of light and shadow in your peripheral vision. Your conscious mind can process about 40 bits per second, 40, out of 11 million. So the RAS makes a choice. It decides what gets through the velvet rope into your awareness and what gets left outside in the cold. And how does it decide? Based on what you've said, it matters. Based on what you focus on. Have you ever noticed that when you're thinking about buying a particular car, you suddenly start seeing that car everywhere? It's not that there are suddenly more of those cars on the road. They were always there. But your RAS wasn't letting them through. You weren't focusing on them, so they didn't exist in your reality. Then you started thinking about that car. You started focusing on it, researching it, imagining yourself driving it. And suddenly, your RAS updates its priorities. Oh, this car matters now. Let it through. And now you see it everywhere. This is not metaphorical expansion. This is literal neurological filtering based on focus. What you focus on becomes more present, more real, and more frequent in your lived experience because your brain is actively seeking it out and bringing it to your attention. But it goes deeper than just noticing things. Your focus actually changes the physical structure of your brain. Neuroplasticity. The brain's ability to rewire itself based on experience. Every time you focus on something, you're strengthening certain neural pathways and weakening others. The neurons that fire together, wire together. When you repeatedly focus your attention on anxiety, on problems, on what's going wrong, you're literally building superhighways in your brain for anxious, problem-focused, negative thinking. You're making it easier for your brain to go there. You're expanding that territory in your neural landscape. Conversely, when you focus on gratitude, on solutions, on growth, and on beauty, you're building different pathways. You're expanding different territories. This isn't positive thinking propaganda. These are measurable, observable changes in brain structure visible on fMRI scans. Studies on London taxi drivers found that the part of their brain responsible for spatial navigation, the hippocampus, was significantly larger than average. Why? Because they spent years focusing intensely on navigating the complex streets of London, what they focused on literally expanded in their brain. Musicians who focus thousands of hours on their instrument show expanded areas of the motor cortex corresponding to the fingers they use most. Meditators who focus on present moment awareness show increased thickness in brain regions associated with attention and emotional regulation. Your attention is not passive observation. Your attention is active construction. You are sculpting your brain with every moment of focus. And your brain, in turn, is sculpting your reality. But the neurology is just the foundation. The real magic and the real danger happens in the stories. Human beings are story-making machines. We can't help it. We take the raw data of experience and we weave it into narratives. We create meaning. We find patterns. And here's the thing. Whatever you focus on becomes the central character in your story. If you focus on betrayal, you will find betrayal everywhere. You will interpret ambiguous actions as betrayal. You will remember past betrayals more vividly. You will anticipate future betrayals. Betrayal will become the lens through which you see relationships. It will expand in your story until it's the dominant theme. Not because there's objectively more betrayal in your life than anyone else's, but because you're focusing on it. If you focus on opportunity, you will find opportunity everywhere. The same ambiguous situation that someone else interprets as a threat, you will interpret as a possibility. You will remember past successes. You will notice open doors. Opportunity will become your lens. It will expand in your story. This is the mechanism behind what psychologists call confirmation bias. Once you focus on a particular idea or belief, your mind becomes a heat-seeking missile for evidence that confirms it. You will find that evidence not because it's objectively there in greater quantity, but because you're looking for it. And what you look for, you find. What you focus on expands. There's a famous study where researchers asked participants to watch a video of people passing basketballs and count how many times the team in white passed the ball. Simple enough. But in the middle of the video, a person in a gorilla suit walks directly through the scene, beats their chest, and walks off. When asked afterward if they noticed anything unusual, about half the participants said no, they never saw the gorilla, because they were focusing on counting passes. They were focusing on white shirts and basketballs, so that's what expanded in their awareness. The gorilla, despite being obvious and right in front of them, didn't exist. This is happening in your life every single day. There are gorillas walking through your experience that you never see because you're focused on something else. There are possibilities, solutions, moments of beauty, acts of kindness, and potential connections that are right in front of you, beating their chest, trying to get your attention. But you don't see them because you're focused on the problems, the pain, the lack, and the difficulty. What you focus on expands. What you ignore, for all practical purposes, ceases to exist. But here's where things get dark. Here's where the power of focus reveals its shadow side. Because if what you focus on expands, and if you can't control what you focus on, then you become a prisoner of expansion you never chose. This is rumination, the endless, repetitive, circular thinking about the same distressing thoughts over and over and over. It's one of the most destructive patterns the human mind can fall into, and it's a perfect demonstration of the principle we're exploring. Rumination is when your mind cannot stop replaying something that hurt you. A conversation, a mistake, a moment, a memory. You analyze it, you dissect it, you relive it. And every time you do, you reopen the wound a little bit more. You're focusing on the pain, and so the pain expands. Not metaphorically, actually, measurably. Rumination is associated with longer, more severe, depressive episodes. It interferes with problem solving. It impairs cognitive function. It damages relationships. It increases anxiety. It disrupts sleep. And it's all because of where the focus is locked. When you ruminate, you're not just thinking about something painful. You're focusing on it with such intensity and repetition that you're literally rewiring your brain to make that pain more accessible, more present, and more real. You're building neural superhighways to that pain. You're training your reticular activating system to constantly scan for more evidence of that pain. You're making that pain the central character in your story. What you focus on expands. And when what you're focusing on is pain, distress, failure, and inadequacy, the expansion is catastrophic. The cruel irony is that rumination feels productive. It feels like you're working through something, trying to understand something, trying to solve something, but you're not. You're just rehearsing the pain, you're practicing suffering, and the more you practice, the better you get at it. This is why people get stuck. This is why depression can feel inescapable. This is why anxiety can spiral into panic. Not because the original problem was insurmountable, but because they focused on it so intensely, for so long, that it expanded beyond all proportion. It became their entire reality. The way out is not to try to stop thinking about it. Trying to suppress thoughts only makes them more persistent. The way out is to shift focus. To deliberately, consciously, repeatedly place your attention somewhere else, on something constructive, on something beautiful, on something that serves you. This is not toxic positivity. This is not pretending problems don't exist. This is recognizing that you have finite attentional resources, and where you spend them matters more than almost anything else in your life, because where you spend them determines what expands. So what do we do with this knowledge? How do we use this principle intentionally instead of being its victim? The answer is surprisingly simple in concept, brutally difficult in execution. You must become the guardian of your own attention. You must wake up to the fact that your attention is being fought over by 1,000 forces every single day. Advertisers want it. Social media platforms have algorithms specifically designed to capture and hold it. Your own negative thought patterns want it. Drama wants it. Fear wants it. Your attention is the most valuable resource you possess, and everyone wants a piece of it. Most people go through life on autopilot, letting their attention wander wherever it's pulled by the loudest stimulus, the brightest screen, or the most immediate emotion. And then they wonder why their life feels chaotic, why they feel anxious, why they can't make progress, and why nothing seems to work out. It's because they're not choosing where their attention goes, and if you're not choosing, someone or something else is choosing for you. And what they're choosing to expand in your reality is probably not what you would choose if you were paying attention. Deliberate focus requires 3 things. First, awareness. You must become aware of where your attention actually is, moment to moment. Most people have no idea. They're lost in thought, lost in their phone, lost in worry, and lost in autopilot. The first practice is simply to notice, where is my attention right now? What am I focusing on? Is this what I want to be focusing on? This is the foundation of mindfulness, not some mystical state of enlightenment, but simply the practice of knowing where your attention is and having the ability to move it when you choose. Second choice. Once you're aware of where your attention is, you must exercise the power to move it. This is harder than it sounds. Your attention has momentum. It has habits. It wants to return to familiar patterns, familiar worries, and familiar distractions. Moving it requires effort. It requires discipline. It requires the willingness to feel the discomfort of leaving a thought unfinished, a worry unresolved, and a distraction unexplored. This is where most people fail. They become aware of their negative focus, but they don't move it. They say, "Yes, I know I'm ruminating, but I can't help it." And maybe in that moment, it feels that way. But you can help it. You can redirect. You can choose. Not perfectly, not every time, but you can practice. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Third, repetition. You must do this over and over and over. You must make deliberate focus a habit, because your brain is plastic. It will adapt. It will change. But only if you give it consistent input. One day of deliberate focus will do almost nothing. 1 week will do a little. 1 month will start to show results. 1 year will change your life. What you focus on expands. so focus on what you want to expand. Of course, none of this is new. The principle that attention shapes reality is as old as human thought itself. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from attachment, and attachment is simply sustained attention on desire or aversion. Where you place your mind determines your experience. What you focus on expands. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Quality of thoughts, not quantity, not accuracy, quality. And quality is determined by what you focus on." The ancient Stoics had a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. But it wasn't what it sounds like. It wasn't focusing on catastrophe. It was briefly imagining potential difficulties, not to dwell on them, but to prepare for them and then let them go, to prevent the mind from being ambushed, to maintain control over focus. In the Christian tradition, there's a concept called custody of the eyes, the recognition that what you allow yourself to look at, to focus on, shapes your inner life. It was understood that attention was sacred, that it must be guarded. In Eastern traditions, there's the concept of dharana, concentration, the sixth limb of yoga. The practice of holding attention steady on a single point, not because the point matters, but because the practice of holding attention steady trains the mind to be under your control rather than being controlled by external forces. These traditions understood something that modern psychology is only now confirming with data. Your attention is not neutral. Your attention is creative. Your attention builds worlds. But it's not just individual. The principle of what you focus on expands, operates at the collective level too. Culture is, in many ways, collective attention. What does a society focus on? That's what expands in that society. If a culture focuses on fear, fear expands. Crime rates might actually be going down, but if the news focuses on crime, if politicians focus on crime, if dinner conversations focus on crime, then crime expands in the collective consciousness. It becomes more real, more present, and more defining of that culture's experience. If a culture focuses on innovation, innovation expands, not because there's inherently more creative capacity, but because attention is directed there. Resources follow attention. Investment follows attention. Young people's aspirations follow attention. What a culture focuses on expands in that culture. Social media has made this dynamic visible in real time. We can watch how collective attention creates reality. A topic trends not because it's objectively the most important thing happening, but because people are focusing on it, and once people focus on it, it becomes important, it expands. It shapes conversations, decisions, and emotions. Reality itself shifts based on where collective attention is directed. This is why propaganda works. This is why manufactured outrage works. This is why culture wars are so effective at distracting from actual policy. Because if you can control what people focus on, you can control what expands in their reality. You can control what they believe is important, what they fear, what they desire, and what they think is possible. The resistance to this is the same at the collective level as at the individual level. Deliberate focus, critical thinking. Asking, what am I being encouraged to focus on right now? And does that serve me? Does that serve the kind of world I want to live in? Because what we focus on together expands for all of us. There's a paradox here that needs to be addressed. If what you focus on expands, should you focus on your weaknesses or your strengths? The self-help industrial complex has given contradictory advice on this for decades. One camp says, focus on your strengths, double down on what you're good at. Ignore your weaknesses, the other camp says. Focus on your weaknesses. That's where growth happens. Challenge yourself. The truth, as usual, is more nuanced. What you focus on expands. So if you focus exclusively on your weaknesses, on your flaws, on everything that's wrong with you, that will expand. You will become hyper-aware of your inadequacies. You will see evidence of them everywhere. Your identity will become wrapped up in them. This is not useful. But if you focus exclusively on your strengths and ignore your weaknesses, you will never grow. You will plateau. You will remain comfortable, but stagnant. Your strengths will expand, yes, but within a limited range. You'll become very good at what you're already good at, and that's it. The resolution to this paradox is to focus on growth itself, not on weakness, not on strength, on growth, in the process of becoming. This means you must be willing to focus on discomfort, because growth lives in discomfort. Growth lives in the gap between where you are and where you're trying to go. If you only focus on what's comfortable, comfort expands, and comfort is the enemy of growth. Nietzsche understood this. He argued that suffering in the pursuit of growth was not just acceptable, but necessary. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how, he wrote. If you focus on a meaningful goal, if you focus on who you're becoming, then the suffering of the journey becomes part of the expansion you want. The difficulty becomes the point. This is why athletes focus on the burn, on the struggle, on pushing past limits. They're not focusing on weakness, they're focusing on growth, and growth expands. This is why artists focus on the gap between their vision and their current skill. They're not focusing on inadequacy, they're focusing on evolution, and evolution expands. What you focus on expands, so focus on expansion itself. Focus on the journey of becoming more than you are today. But we must be honest about the shadow side of this principle, because focus can become obsession, and obsession can become destruction. If what you focus on expands, and if you focus on something unhealthy with enough intensity, it will expand until it consumes everything. This is addiction. The alcoholic focuses on the relief that alcohol provides. That relief expands until it's the only relief they can imagine. Their entire life contracts around that focus. This is eating disorders. The person focuses on control over their body, on the numbers on the scale, and on the feeling of restriction. That focus expands until it's the only thing that matters. Everything else falls away. This is conspiracy thinking. The person focuses on finding hidden patterns, on connecting dots, and on uncovering what others can't see. That focus expands until the entire world becomes a conspiracy. Nothing exists outside of it. The principle is value neutral. It works whether you're focusing on something that serves you or something that destroys you. What you focus on expands, regardless of whether that expansion is healthy. This is why the quality of your focus matters as much as the fact of your focus. You can be incredibly disciplined in your attention and still end up in a very dark place if what you're disciplined about is self-destruction. The safeguard is values. You must know what you value. You must know what kind of expansion you want. You must have some criterion outside of the focus itself to evaluate whether the expansion is moving you toward the life you want or away from it. Without this, focus becomes dangerous. With it, focus becomes the most powerful tool you have. So we arrive at the question that matters, the question that will determine the shape and quality of your life. What do you want to expand? Because it will expand. Whatever you focus on, it will expand. So choose carefully, choose consciously, choose as if your life depends on it, because it does. Do you want anxiety to expand? Then keep focusing on everything that could go wrong. Keep replaying worst-case scenarios. Keep scanning your environment for threats. Anxiety will expand. Guaranteed. Do you want gratitude to expand? Then focus on what you have. Focus on what's working. Focus on the small moments of beauty and connection that you usually overlook. Gratitude will expand. Guaranteed. Do you want resentment to expand? Then focus on how you've been wronged. Focus on the unfairness of your circumstances. Focus on what others have that you don't. Resentment will expand. Guaranteed. Do you want the possibility to expand? Then focus on what could go right. Focus on opportunities. Focus on your agency. Focus on examples of people who overcame similar challenges. Possibility will expand. Guaranteed. Do you want your pain to expand? Keep focusing on it. Keep rehearsing it. Keep telling the story of how you were hurt. Pain will expand. Guaranteed. Do you want your growth to expand? Focus on who you're becoming. Focus on the skills you're building. Focus on the progress you're making, however small. Growth will expand, guaranteed. This is not about denying reality. This is not about pretending problems don't exist. This is about recognizing that you have limited attentional resources and unlimited potential areas to direct them. And where you direct them determines what becomes real for you. Reality is not a fixed thing that you're observing. Reality is a collaborative creation between what's out there and what you're focusing on in here. And you have far more control over that creation than you realize. So how do you start? How do you take this from abstract principle to concrete practice? Start with the morning. The first hour after you wake up, what do you focus on? Do you immediately grab your phone and focus on what everyone else is thinking, what the algorithm wants you to see, and what problems are happening in the world? Or do you focus on your own intentions, your own priorities, and your own state of mind? The morning sets the tone. What you focus on first thing expands throughout the day. Choose carefully. Then, throughout the day, practice the awareness choice redirect cycle. Notice where your attention is. Ask if that's where you want it to be. If not, redirect. Do this 10 times a day, every day, for a month. You will be astonished at how different your experience becomes. When you notice yourself ruminating, don't try to stop the thoughts. That doesn't work. Instead, acknowledge them. I see you, thoughts about the thing that happened. I understand you want my attention. Then consciously redirect. But right now, I'm going to focus on this task in front of me. I'm going to focus on my breath. I'm going to focus on what I can control. It will feel unnatural at first. Your attention will want to snap back to the rumination. Let it, notice it, redirect again. This is the practice. The muscle gets stronger each time you use it. At night, before sleep, focus on gratitude. Find 3 things from the day, however small, that you're grateful for. Not because gratitude will solve all your problems, but because what you focus on in those final moments before sleep will expand in your unconscious processing throughout the night. Your brain will work on whatever problem you give it. Give it a problem worth solving. And most importantly, choose one thing, one domain of your life where you want to see expansion. Maybe it's creativity, maybe it's relationships, maybe it's health. Maybe it's learning. Pick one and commit to focusing on it deliberately every single day. Journal about it, learn about it, notice examples of it, practice it for 1 year. At the end of that year, it will have expanded in your life in ways you cannot currently imagine, not because of magic, because of focus. You already know this is true. You've experienced it. You just haven't named it. You just haven't wielded it consciously. Think about falling in love. When you first start falling for someone, what happens? They expand. They expand in your awareness until you think about them constantly. They expand in your perception until everything reminds you of them. They expand in your reality until your life reorganizes itself around them. Not because they're objectively more important than they were before, but because you're focusing on them. Think about learning a new skill. When you first start, you're terrible. You focus on the basics. You practice. You pay attention. And slowly, gradually, your ability expands. The skill that seemed impossible becomes natural. Why? Because you focused on it. Think about worry. When you worry about something, what happens? The worry expands. It gets bigger. It gets more real. It gets more urgent. Not because the situation itself is changing, but because you're focusing on the worry. You know this. You've always known this. You've just never been told that it's not a bug. It's a feature. You've never been told that this is the fundamental operating system of consciousness. You've never been told that you can use it deliberately. Now you know. What you focus on expands. That's not metaphorical. That's neurology. That's psychology. That's the lived experience of every conscious being who has ever existed. You are walking through life with a magic wand in your hand, and wherever you point it, that thing grows. You've been pointing it at random, at whatever catches your eye, at whatever makes you feel something immediately, at whatever others tell you to point it at. And then you wonder why your life looks the way it does. The invitation is simple. Take control of the wand. Point it deliberately. Point it at what you want to grow. Point it at who you want to become. Point it at the life you want to live. It won't be instant. The expansion takes time, but it's inevitable. What you focus on expands. The question is not whether this is true. The question is, what will you focus on? Because the answer to that question will determine everything. Your happiness, your success, your relationships, your growth, your contribution, your legacy. All of it stems from this one choice, made over and over, moment to moment, day after day. Where is your attention right now? Is that what you want to expand? If not, you know what to do. The power was always yours. You just didn't know you were using it. Now you do. So use it wisely. Use it consciously. Use it as if your life depends on it. Because it does. What you focus on expands. That's not metaphorical. That's your life.